start to publish episode for Is It Observable? So provide content that are meaningful for the community.
I don't know, like if you know or not, but the Henrik is like one of the greatest developer relations that available in the entire world. So awesome. So we will discuss that, and as you can see, he also has his own YouTube channel. So we will also talk about that. Like he's a tech guy and how he deals with advocacy and stuff. So further, without disturbing anything, going ahead, let me introduce the Henrik, and he will be the only one who can introduce himself. So Henrik, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. My name is Henrik Rexed. I am working at Dynatrace as a cloud native advocate, but I'm more focused on everything related to open source, and specifically open observability frameworks and anything that runs into Kubernetes, because I think there is a lot of fantastic solutions out there, and it desires to be promoted and to increase the adoptions of those products.
So, also, would you like to tell us like what actually you work on and how you deal with the advocacy, or like?
So at the moment, I'm working on plenty of topics. There's plenty of things on my plate. I currently, I have the, like you mentioned, I'm start to publish episode for Is It Observable? So provide content that are meaningful for the community. So now, because it's almost summer, it's at least in the north part of the planet, it will be it means that I will have some vacations. So I need to produce lots of content, so then I can just schedule them and be and enjoy my day off. So at the moment, I'm researching on a couple of different solutions. So the next episode that will be released, I'm talking about the event-driven architecture. So how to trace and build distributed tracing in those type of environments. The other one, I had a discussion and with the founder of a solution called Kival, who is providing an open source solution called Oligos for Kubernetes. So I looked at it. So stay tuned. There will be more content dedicated to that solution. Otherwise, I'm jumping into the world of the API gateway, the gateway API, the ambient mesh, looking at what you were getting out of that in terms of, first of all, in terms of configuration, but what's the value for people who want to extend the observability. And I'm pretty sure that there will be a lot of interesting things coming out of there. So that's more on the Is It Observable side. On the day-to-day Dynatrace part, there is a lot of new initiatives coming in Dynatrace. Especially, we released this year the new platform, having different modules and different things, and we try to promote that as much as possible. And I mean, in my case, I'm working closely with the team that works on the community sides of the community support. So I'm trying to build content and explain what we do, how we do things, and what's the value of this new platform. What are we going to save or help for end users?
Yeah, it is like awesome things you're doing currently, and I knew already, but yeah, like most of the audience will be happy to know this. Other than that, as you told about you are trying to learn about the ambient mesh and API gateways. So, yeah, any help required, you can pay me. I have given a lot of talks on this. So it is really awesome technology. Like it is really awesome. Like how the like you won't have that proxy attached, sidecar attached, and just one proxy per node. It is like awesome technology. So yeah, it is one of the technologies if our audio wants to learn and go ahead with the open source. Yeah, it's going to contribute because HDL is going really fast and you may be getting larger updates. So Moving ahead, I would like to ask Henrik, like, so how you get into the cloud native and how like you are now the one of the latest person as a developer in the Dynatrace. So what was the journey being? Like, what affected you to like come into the cloud native and become a developer of it?
Actually, it's a very good question. So I started my career as a developer, and then I were very much working as a consultant in project with databases. So when I started my career, I said, "Oh, I'm going to be a DBA," because I really liked it, the how to store things and how to architecture things. So I thought it was that was going to be my passion, the way that my career. And then one day, I finished one of the projects, and as a consultant, it's not good to have no projects anymore. You have to get a project. And one guy in the whole of the company I was working for says, "Hey, are you available?" I say, "Yeah, sure. I want to work." And then he says, "Do you want to work as a performance engineer?" Or at the time, it was not performance engineer; it was called performance tester. And I just heard the term testing, and I said, "Oh my god, no, no, I don't want to do testing. I want to build things. I want to code things." And then I spent the weekend. I looked at what actually is all about performance engineering and performance testing, and I thought, "Oh man, there's a lot of opportunity here. I may learn a lot of things by working there." So from that moment, I spent almost 15 years on my career, heavily dedicated on optimizing things, architecture things, reconfiguring things, stressing and figure out bottlenecks. And then 2 years ago, I was working at different level as a performance engineer, as a consultant, as an architect, blah blah blah. And then I finished my career as a DevRel for a software vendor. So I was somehow the DevRel for that company. And 2 years ago, I decided to change. And I thought, performance is great, I love it, but I want to go cover broader topics. And I think the cloud was something that I was very interested. I have tested a lot of different platform, and I want to invest my time a bit more on that. So that's why I had the chance to join Dynatrace, and Dynatrace said, "Oh, so performance engineering is great, but now your thing is going to be Kubernetes." I said, "Okay." I would say the first 2 months I was basically doing 100% of training or trying to get at least a good understanding on what's the value of that and how you can structure and so on. And since then I never left Kubernetes. It's my day-to-day. Every morning I open a command line, I do some queries, I do some stuff. I really love for me it's a different community for sure. I think the performance engineering community is great. It's awesome. People are very passionate. They want to learn things. But on the cloud space, it's a similar atmosphere, but very warm and very welcome. Everyone is nice. Everyone is welcoming.
Yes.
And I think what is great is everyone is open, has their eyes open on the market, and they are not taking everything. They are trying to build things, and I really like that community in the sense where people are smart and they understand the value of various components that are out there, and they are doing great things. So I'm really excited to now interact more with the cloud native community, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, like cloud native community is like most welcoming and most motivating community, because like everyone is there to help you. Like anytime you ask a doubt to anyone, they will solve your doubts. If you need anything, they will happy to help you. And community is also one of the largest communities. So yeah, go ahead and ask anywhere, and people will be more than happy to contribute also. Like they will be happy to contribute in the sense of a blog, contribute in the sense of a open source project, also sense in the like also if you want to submit the talk anywhere, they will be more than happy to collaborate with you. So yeah, it happens there all good. So knowing about your journey, it was really like really awesome. Like performance engineering for like sure, I'm hearing this word first time from anyone. I never knew the performance engineering. So you did your major years in the performance engineering. So it is something about dealing with the testing and high level testing, and then how you impact the engineer's life using that, right? If I'm not wrong.
So it's everything is about you have an architecture,
Yeah.
and you potentially in that architecture, obviously you will have spikes, and spike will generate problems in your environment. And the idea is that first of all, a good performance engineer is all about understanding the entire architecture, working closely with developers to see, okay,
Oh,
this is how you load balance your service, this is
yeah.
how you're going to make the auto scaling rules, and then the performance engineering comes into place, set up the right strategy to test, because we want to apply load, but it doesn't make sense to just stress, because stress is great, but sometimes stress will just discover problems that are never going to happen in real life. So the idea is to simulate something that is realistic, to align with something traffic that may happen in production, take into account the user traffic, but also probably, I don't know, event messaging, or could be batch processing, could be, there's plenty of different tasks or process running in environments, taking everything into together, and then simulate that simulation by stressing the servers, collecting, of course, this is where observability is an element which is very important for a performance engineer. To you do a short test, so you need as much details as possible. So almost just raw data, and then from there you look at the behavior from traces, from metrics, from logs, and then you say, okay, here is not doing well. If I want to auto scale and have my service ready, because auto scaling is great, but people never realize that, yeah, yes, I'm going to auto scale, but keep in mind that your workload will, yes, you will add an extra pod, but the pod will be ready in 30 seconds. So if you have a huge spike in 30 seconds, you may die. So you need to configure the right thresholds to avoid dying in the middle of the day or middle of the night in your production hours. So that's about performance. And also the great thing is it's funny, because when I 10 years ago, when we were implementing what we call failure testing, so we were generating stress on the environment, and then we knew that we had different data centers or different services, so we were intentionally cutting out lines, so shutting down the network lines between one service to the other, measure how it was reacting, and then reporting if we were reliable. And that's funny, because at that time, we, as a performance engineer, everyone was doing it, or at least the good performance engineer was doing it, but nobody out there in the market was doing it. And suddenly, a few years after, Netflix and the others were talking about chaos engineering, saying, "Oh, we're going to inject failures, we're going to disrupt the network," and say, "Hey, gosh, this is something we've been doing since decades as a performance engineer." So now I think it's great, because this notion of injecting failure, which was part of a performance engineering task, now is getting normal for organizations, and they use it as an SRE practice. So I think it's very exciting. I think the way we've been testing our applications, the way we've been trying to make our systems more reliable through those tests, has been being better and better, because organizations are getting mature and more mature, and they understand the value of that. And I think now, for people investing their time in that performance engineering field, I think it's very exciting, because they will touch lots of technology, lots of different use cases. So I think it's a great way of learning things in general.
I get it. I get it. So, what I understood till now, it is one kind of a combination between the solution engineer and a field engineer, where you deal with various things and you provide the solutions, also in the architectural solution for sure. So, it is one of the awesome thing I am heard today. So, I learned something new, learning from me. So, thanks for that. Other than that, so what are the projects you think like you are proud of? I mean, and you are building currently, which is helping the community, which is also helping the sustainability. What are the things you you are like you can like most of, right?
So I think I mean, I try to develop things, but I'm a bad developer. I mean, I've been a developer a few years back, but I would say that the code that I'm producing compared to other people that produce beautiful code, my code is just awful. I do things, I know how to do things, but I will never take my code as, hey, this is going to be reliable for production usage. At least when I build my code, it's doing what I desire. So so I try to code, I would say, experimental stuff, and then I try to give back that to someone who says you are a better developer, and you will probably do more beautiful code. So don't pay attention to how I structure the code. So what I'm working at the moment is, obviously, I try to educate because I think there's so many projects out there, so many things going on, and we are all having pressure. We are all working on something, and sometimes we don't have the time to step back and say, oh, how can I do this? And so I try to be helpful to the community by providing content. It could be on OpenTelemetry, it could be on FluentBit, FluentD, on stuff related to Kubernetes in general. And I think that I won't just help because I think suffering from not having the right moment or time to dig in a solution, it's quite frustrating, and then you're just running everywhere and you're not able to implement things. So this is what I'm trying to do the most. And every time I see a project that has some value, or that is helping a lot, or there is a big potential behind the scene, I try to code an integration. So I look at how the application works, how you can build extensions, and then from there I try to code it. Again, it's going to be experimental. I don't expect people I mean, it could be done in a better way, but I think it's just to prove to the community that yes, it's possible. That technically, if you look at things, you can build yourself awesome stuff. So that's where I'm trying to spend most of my time. And one thing that I also very invested in is everything related to OpenTelemetry. I'm really excited by the OpenTelemetry, open standard of OpenTelemetry, what is providing to the market, the fact that we have now a standard, and we can basically now rely on an agnostic libraries to produce our telemetry data and then inject it in Dynatrace or whatever we want. So I'm trying as much as possible to help the OpenTelemetry community by providing content. If I have customers or prospect that has issues, to help them out. And there is a working group called the End User Research Group from OpenTelemetry, where we try to bring end user, share their experience, because I think it's even stronger and better if you have a real end user or an end customer who is using OpenTelemetry in production and just sharing their experience. Because I think people will be more interested to say, oh, he did it. What was the journey? How did he increase the adoptions internally? I think all those type of questions, if an end user or not a vendor is explaining that, I think it's more powerful and more useful. So I think this research group is all about bringing the users, let them ask questions, let them share their knowledge, and I think that is exciting, because I think if we want to any open source project, the most important thing is the adoptions. If you have no adoptions, then the project may die.
Definitely. Thanks for sharing that insights. To summarize, you have explained about OpenTelemetry and how sustainability is important. And moving ahead, how if from the audience, if you want to contribute to the OpenTelemetry community, you can contact Henrik anytime. It's not active creating different content around the same. So also, I would like to ask, if you don't mind, you are creating different content and different kind of thing, doing as you said, exciting stuff. Would you mind if you like to share anything to our audience, if you have anything created? So we will know, mind. Other than that, also people would like to know what you do outside the work, like how you are helping the community, like you have your own YouTube channel, right? Where you educate the folks on the various technologies, various projects, open source projects, and the various cloud native projects. So I know already, but yeah, audience will be excited. No, so yeah, but
So yeah, first, so I'm working out of the work on different things. So is observable is obviously my key channel. I try to dedicate it for observability content and cloud native observability. So open telemetry, SRE, and open observability frameworks. Side of that, I because like I mentioned, because I've been working so long in my career as a performance engineer, I have included a working group called Perf Bytes. So they used to be out there providing podcasts mainly, and then they slowly moved to YouTube. So I'm part of the team. I'm one of the producers. We try to do once a month or
awesome.
some live stream about dedicated for performance engineering content. And because my colleague, my friend Leandro Melendez, working for Grafana, he's doing Perf Byte Espanol, Senior Performo. I am gonna launch, because I live in France. I'm gonna probably launch with a partner, a colleague of mine, the Perf Byte Français. So people are looking for French content on performance engineering, I will provide that to the community. But again, this is more like a weekend task. So I don't try to work. I try to also enjoy my private life. So for my private life, I like to cook. I love cooking. I love to enjoy nature, do some hiking, mountain biking, skiing, and yeah, everything that just being outside, close to the mountains or close to the sea. So I do also windsurfing as well. I just love it. Spending my time outside. I mean, for those who is doing home working, I know it's awesome, but sometimes working 10 hours in front of your laptop, you're just happy on the weekend to be outside and just enjoy fresh air.
Thanks for that, Page. Like, it is awesome. So
So
yeah, so
you mentioned about content that I'm currently preparing. So I have a small issue. So my for some reason I was starting a cluster a few before we met, and have a technical issue. But what I can do instead of that, I can share you some explanation about event-driven architecture. So if you're doing event-driven tracing, this is the content that will be released in less than a week. There are a few things that you have to consider. Again, let me know, Rohit, if you make sense or not. Otherwise, I can just briefly tease it, not showing so much. I'll let you know if you're interested.
yeah, we would like to know. Like, yeah, it is awesome things. Yeah.
So in an event-driven architecture, as you know, it's different from a traditional architecture where we have microservices, where there is a producer. The producer will send some message to a broker or to something that will receive the message, and then you have consumers that will consume the message. So a normal architecture is like a phone call where you say, I'm calling someone, I ask them questions, and once we answer all the different questions, we just hang up. In the event-driven architecture world, it's different. It's almost like a mail. You send a mail, and then you don't expect technically an answer. But you don't control how many people will answer to your message. Especially if you send a Twitter message, you can have 1,000 people answering to you or reacting to your message, or zero. When you do tracing in those environments, it's very important, first of all, because you want to figure out what is going on in your process. That's the part of the observability. But when you design the tracing on event-driven architecture, the normal way of tracing is to build an end-to-end trace, which means I start from service A, and the backend is service F, let's say, and I'll go through all those services one by one. If I have an event-driven architecture, I send a message, and technically I can have 6 or 7 consumers or less that will start a process. So, which means if I do an end-to-end trace from that perspective, I will have the producer send me a message, and then all those consumers starting, and then you have a trace that is huge, because sometimes there are some tasks which is more like a batch, and then you end up with a 2 to 3 minutes trace, and an end-to-end trace which is 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes it's almost not usable, because if you have a spans or a step of your transaction that is 50 milliseconds or 20 milliseconds in a 2 minute time frame, a 2 minute trace, it's barely visible. You're not able to see, and you don't understand what you should optimize on by looking at the trace. So that's why it makes sense from an OpenTelemetry perspective. There is a solution called span links, where instead of linking all the spans, so spans are sub-transactions, to the main trace, you can decide to say, oh, so here is the producer, and then once a consumer starts, he will start a new trace, but he will link it to the producer. So as a consequence, you get different traces, so one for the producer and one for each individual consumers. And at the end, you don't lose visibility, because at the consumer level, you still have the link to get back to the producer. So this type of design, of course, really depends on your own implementations. If you have a distributed event-driven architecture that is, transaction is very, very fast and very efficient, not too long, then maybe an end-to-end trace makes sense. But maybe if your environment, like I described, has lots of consumers, the tasks are very long to process, then you will get traces that, like I mentioned, that are barely visible. So that's where utilizing span links will be more efficient. So that's what I try to explain on the episode. And I explain how to build your span links, how to propagate the trace context into your event messaging. So yeah, stay tuned. This is going to be released in a week or so, week or two.
Awesome. So, it was really exciting things you're building. So really, I'm excited for your future videos for sure. Other than that, we got to explore various things with you, and to know the audience. He's also organizing the one of the things which recently announced, which is Case Study Australia. So if you want, you can always contact the Henrik for any doubts. He will be more than happy to help you. Like if you have, it's like common problems, like how to build a good CFP where which can be accepted. So what should be the essentials in that, you can ask him. And then other than that, what actually Case Study Australia do, what actually happens in the Kubernetes communities, what actually happens in the CNCF community, you can always reach out to him. So Dynatrace is one of the nice company which has different products. Go check it out about Henrik work at Dynatrace, because he's building awesome stuff, and that's why I reached out to him and invited for the podcast, because I want to invite the folks who are doing awesome things in the industry, in the cloud native presence, and they are building things which is helping the community in some or other way. So if you are excited about learning the DevOps and cloud native technologies, do check our previous episodes on the cloud native podcast. So we are trying to make a videos where I will be inviting the folks around the world who will share active things on the same. So previously we had the great chat with the Daniel about the learn gates and how he's helping society with the same. Similarly, Henrik is here. He has his own YouTube channel where he shares various things. So if you have any doubts, if you want to learn about the open source projects like Linkerd, Istio, Service Mesh, and Hotel and all, you can always check the YouTube channel. I will give the reference links out to the all things which Henrik talked about today in the our YouTube channel description. And other than that, if you have any doubts, you can always comment in the comments, and we will have more than happy to solve that questions and answer your question. So I would like to thank Henrik for coming to our today's Cloud Native podcast. If you have any last words to share with the audience, they are the learners in the Cloud Native, they are the learners in DevOps. So go ahead, Henrik.
So I would say learn things and don't hesitate to be part of an open source project. Open source project is not about coding. If you know how to do documentation, if you know how to present things, if you will still be valuable assets for the project. So don't be shy and contribute back to open source.
Awesome. So I guess audience will be also happy. Like we didn't discuss today more on the platform engineering side, like platform engineering versus DevOps kind of questions, but performance engineering. So it is one of the new thing which you learned today, and also me. So thanks for having thanks for having us. So bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.